The two metrics we're going to dive into today are the actual cumulative revenue compared to budget and the accuracy of cumulative budget expenses. Both of these financial metrics are within our high-performing government outcome, and they link to two specific strategic objectives. First, 7.1 of providing world-class municipal services to our residents and businesses. The reason for that is that it's very important that we're accurate in forecasting how much revenue we have, because that sets a baseline of the resources we have available for the funding of services and programs for our community. Also, the accuracy of the budget for those programs and services is very important to make sure that they are properly resourced to provide the quality of service or a commitment that we make when anything is adopted in the budget. The second strong strategic objective linkage is to 7.6, and the reason for that is that the community dashboard, as well as some other systems that we have that we'll talk about, leverage data technology and metrics and helping us evaluate our performance delivery to the community. So diving into revenue, the revenue here is green and this is through Q2. As a reminder, we update the community dashboard about 6 weeks after quarter end. And so what is up there right now is Q2. The performance is green because our revenue is coming in higher than our budget. Actual revenue through Q2 is $294 million compared to a budget of $285 million. It's important to know that we do a lot more analysis than just this one single metric. And so we're looking at timing differences. And an example of that is when we expected a payment in June coming from Larimer County for property tax. These come throughout the year, and that payment wasn't received until July. And so we had anticipated it, and that'd be an area where we might be under budget. And then we also look at where just because revenue doesn't come in, that may not be a bad thing. And the reason is if we didn't incur the expenses at the same time. So you think about the Lincoln Center. If they would not hold a show, there would be no expenses associated with it. And so as long as they rise and fall together, that's a good thing. As a takeaway for this, all major revenue sources are on track for 2019. There are implications for 2020, and that will be one of the aspects we focus on in the work session next Tuesday, talking about the 2020 budget revisions. Moving on to expenses. These expenses exclude large capital projects because those will oftentimes expand into multiple years. The actual performance from an expense perspective was $221 million through Q2, and that's compared to a budget of $247 million. So through Q2, we're $26 million underspent. You might think that seems like a good news item. And to the extent that being under budget is a good thing, since we are legally not allowed to go above the appropriation at a fund level. However, if we're significantly away from that target amount, that becomes a problem. So if we budgeted here, and we're coming in close to that expense amount, well, then that would be in the green range. As we start to deviate and get farther from that budget down, that would be yellow, and we're saying right now we're red. So from that macro view, this metric is red. It's not, but we're not actually in any danger because we've looked at that data, and we have determined that the lion's share of that underspend is coming mainly through timing differences. And so that's where the service has been delivered, but we haven't been invoiced. And that's one of the reasons that we don't close the books officially for the year end until a number of months afterwards, so we have time to do all those accounting reconciliations, if you will. So it's important to see that this community dashboard, we just reviewed two metrics of those. They are at the very top of our pyramid, this picture that you see in front of you, of how we categorize, or the hierarchy we have of metrics. So at the top level, we have our community dashboard. In the middle level, we have our strategy maps, which we review internally, the performance of metrics as well as what we've funded in the budget. And then we also have our financial monthly report. And then at that foundational level, those are our day-to-day operational metrics. If you look at those top two portions of the pyramid, those are areas where we have put in systematic processes to review this data. And those reviews are primarily from a quarterly perspective. So we have our quarterly service area reviews, or QSARs. We have staff reports like this. All of these metrics are included in our strategy maps. And then from a financial perspective, we look at that monthly if not more frequently, depending on what the numbers are showing us. And we look at that at numerous levels. So the department, service area, and fund level, this is reviewed organizationally within the departments and service areas. And then there's also a monthly review at the executive leadership team to understand our financial performance. And lastly, this is just 2 screenshots of some of the pages from that financial monthly report. The top one being a revenue snapshot, the next one being expenses. And so the key takeaway here is that even though the community dashboard has 2 very high-level metrics in aggregate of all revenues and all expenses, there is a thorough analysis and evaluations of all financial done that is done throughout the year to make sure that we really understand what is the performance of the numbers and is there any actions that are necessary to take based on that information.